Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Danny Thomas podcast. Really excited about this opportunity today to interview Joe Westerlund, a man who I have a lot of respect for and have worked with for many years. He retired from Air Products after 30 plus years of working there. Really excited about this opportunity to get to know him a little bit better, shine a spotlight on a plant manager who has spent a long time in this industry. And that's what this podcast is all about, actually, shining a spotlight on the heroes who are keeping hospitals full of medical oxygen and electronic chips and industrial places. I mean, just the whole entire country runs on the products that ASU plant managers are churning out. So I think that they definitely deserve a spotlight and they deserve to be celebrated. And that's why I'm really excited to do this podcast and hope you enjoy it. First off, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to interview you, shine a spotlight on you and your contribution to the industry. Tell you thank you for doing it and working in it. Really excited about this podcast. I think that what you guys do is underappreciated when you consider, you're filling hospitals and everything from our iPhones to the hospitals are using the product that plant managers are keeping running. So that's the idea behind this podcast is kind of celebrating what you guys do. And even though, you're retired now, but I still think that just makes you an even better candidate to interview, because how many years were you with Air Products?
40.
40. In the intro, I was saying, I know he's with them for 30 plus years, but man, 40 years. That's
Let me tell you, I started in November. And so I retired officially on August, like the 14th or 15th. So let's see, September 15, October 15. So 2.5 months short of 40 years.
Wow. So I got some of these questions. I know I sent them over to you. I wanted to just kind of, you've been in the industry. I'm going to say 40 years. You could say 2 months shy of 40 years. I'm going to say you're there for 40 years. And you also did military service, right?
I did.
So I want to thank you for that as well. Just as much or more for your service there.
Yeah.
Serving the country. How many years were you in the military?
33.
33. So there was kind of crossover.
There was a parallel, a period of time when I was just in the service. Then I started with Air Products and then we worked parallel. I retired from the military in November of 2010. And then I didn't retire from Air Products until last year in 2020.
I think I remember when we first met, it hadn't been that long since you'd retired. You told me a lot about the military. Let's see here. What was your favorite aspect about working in the industrial gases? How did you get started with Air Products? Let's talk about that first.
Well, we were just talking about my military service. So when I got out of the Marine Corps in 1980, I was looking for a job because I had just gotten married. And, I met my bride in Sydney, Australia while I was aboard a ship. And we got married right before I got out of the service. That was down in San Diego. We moved up to Seattle and I needed a job. So I started looking everywhere. I wanted to work for the airlines because I'm by trade a pilot and a jet engine mechanic. Wow. So I was looking for a flying job. And in 1980, the airlines were in a bust. You know how they're boom and bust. And at the time, Northwest Airlines was in business, and I went up and spent a day with their maintenance chief at the Seattle-Tacoma Airport, and we worked all night. We taxied airplanes. I ran the engines on a DC-10, power up, and we did some testing and stuff like that overnight. And the next morning when we were eating breakfast, before we said our goodbye, he just basically told me, look, you're a bright young man. You need to get a promising future with a company that'll pay you and not starve to death in aviation.
Wow.
Yeah. So that popped my bubble of what I wanted to do. But I took him, I mean, he was showing me these guys. He was laying off with 19 to, I don't know, 22, 23 years with Northwest.
Ooh.
Yeah, I was in a bust period of time. So once that week was over, because it took me a while to recover from that, believe it or not. I mean, that hurt all my life. All I want to do is work for an airline. And had the training and the certifications and all that, and it just wasn't going to happen. So I just started looking for a job. And believe it or not, on a Friday afternoon, I came across a little warehouse in Renton, Washington, with this sign on it that said Air Products. And I knocked on the door because it was close to 5 o'clock, and it said interviews. So the gal opened the door for me and asked me what she could do for me. I says, is it too late to interview? I'm looking for a job. And she let me in and I got the job.
So you didn't just apply for plant manager and start out as a plant manager.
No, I started out transferring the liquid that I eventually ended up making, in the ASUs. I was taking some of that liquid and turning it back into gas and filling cylinders for dentists and doctors, welding shops, diving, any kind of application that you would need an industrial gas for.
Was it like a fill plant then? Like what we?
Yeah, it was a fill plant.
At the welder stores, the supply stores, kind of.
Yes, a transfill. Yep.
I didn't know Air Products. I guess everybody was in that industry back in the day. They've kind of gone out of that, haven't they?
Yeah, we sold that division, and it's now called Air Gas.
Yeah, almost all of them ended up becoming called Air Gas. It seems like they were the welding shop powerhouses.
Right. And now the French have bought it, Air Liquide. They bought Air Gas. So now Air Liquide's the largest industrial gas company in the world. They're just huge.
I think actually since you retired, since the Linde Praxair merger, I think they may now be the
placing them.
Yeah. I'm not as sophisticated as Joe Rogan's podcast with a whole team of people to fact check me. But the way I understand it, I believe that Linde is now the largest because of that Praxair merger.
Yeah.
At least in North America. I know they're the largest in North America, but I think worldwide it might be.
Well, I wouldn't doubt it. I wouldn't doubt it at all.
So you started out kind of as what's that?
So that's how I got started. Little cylinder transfill plant in Renton, Washington.
That's awesome. How long did you do that before you switched to an ASU?
Well, let me see, 1980. So 1984, August of 1984, the company asked me if I was interested in becoming a shift supervisor down in the Puyallup facility. And that's where I met Randy.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
I knew when you talked about making your way up to Seattle, it all started to click for me because I knew that you worked originally with Randy, and then even Steve Ward kind of is in that picture.
Oh yeah, Steve Ward and I started together at the Puyallup plant.
Oh, really? So 1984.
Yeah. So Steve has got 36 years right now with the company.
Wow.
I know, isn't that crazy?
Yeah, that's so rare nowadays. I feel like.
Oh, it really is. But
Air
Products is such a good company to work for. I was just talking to a fellow last night. He's a truck driver, and I said, "Look, if you want a real good truck driving job that you're basically home almost not every night, but almost every night, you should look into Air Products."
Wow, that's saying something. To be a truck driver and being home every night, that is pretty good.
That's like an oxymoron or something.
Well, I have a friend in the tech industry, and I think he does like tech sales, and he was at a company for like 3 years, and he said that is like a freaking lifetime in the tech industry. The doors revolve so fast, and I think even outside of the tech industry, just the millennial kind of the more it's very common that we don't stay around for more than like 5, 6, 7 years.
Right.
At a company. I'm already breaking that norm. I think I've been in this 10 years.
That's incredible, man.
I know, right? In fact, the guy who took over your spot in Bountiful, Steve Knudsen, he was at the plant. My very first time I ever went on a plant, I was just just barely turned 18, man. I was just so wet behind the ears. I was barely legal to even get on the plant.
Was that in Idaho?
No, that was the barrack out at Elko. Or
Oh, okay. So
Harlan.
Nevada.
In Nevada, yeah.
Yeah.
And he was at the Gold Strike mine there. And,
Right.
it's funny. It's kind of a funny story, actually. I'll tell it real quick. We were painting a flat bottom tank, and I was just in geometry in high school still. And I told James, the owner, I was like, hey, I'm learning this stuff actually right now in school. We're literally doing calculations of theoretical tanks. And he's like, we were actually working on the Air Liquide plant, and the Air Liquide plant was like 15 minutes away from the Air Products plant.
Yeah.
There's the autoclave and the roaster. So we were working at the autoclave for Air Liquide, and he gets me in the truck. He pulls me down from the cold box from painting one day, and he says, hey, get in the truck. And the Air Liquide guy, I think, drove us over there, or maybe, no, Steve had come over and picked us up. And so I'm kind of just like wondering what's going on. I'm 18. I've only painted like a handful of cryogenic tanks out in the field at customer sites, like hospitals, up to this point. And this was my first ASU, the one that I was doing at the autoclave. So he takes me over there and he says, hey, we're gonna bid this. And so I want you to do the math on this tank. And I did the best I could on it. And I remember feeling like, hey, I'm still kind of an intern learning geometry. I don't know if you should use this. And he whipped up a bid right there and handed it over to him. I mean, it was like, and that was kind of the first little rush I experienced of the sales process in the ASU industry.
Oh, yeah.
And I was doubting my math for sure, because I was still barely learning it. I think Steve actually, I remember Steve double checking me. He had the little pocket calculator out. But, that's incredible, Joe. And, if you're going back to your first day as an operator, what would be your advice you would tell the operators who hear this podcast?
Learn the process. You've got to understand the process. You just can't run on a set of numbers. You've got to understand the process. And what's really interesting, the ASUs can get ahead of you. And then once the process gets ahead of you, you've just extended your day several hours. So you've got to be able to look at all your analytical type equipment and your trending and all that, and kind of be, aggressive in your knowledge and understanding in your actions, so that you can just get the plant up and online and not waste a lot of power producing liquid that's not good for anybody.
Wow. I'm glad I asked you that, because I feel like those little gems right there is really the real value of this podcast, that we're trying to bring value to everybody else when we're reaching out to them, and advice like that is gold. What would you say? And I feel like this is definitely a different realm, because as an operator, you're managing equipment, but as a plant manager, you're managing people. So what would your advice be to a brand new first year plant manager?
Get to know your people as soon as you can, because it's critical to know the outside forces that can impact that operator. So if they're having stresses from outside, you can't check it at the gate. They naturally bring it in to the facility. And if you're doing something critical, some kind of critical task or whatever, that's going to be impacting them. Their mind isn't going to be 100% on what they're doing. So you need to learn your people and be able to read them, so that when something isn't right with them at home, they're you can work with them and allow that to get in. Sometimes, they say don't get too close to your employees. Well, I don't want to get too close to an employee either, except for I do want them to be my friend. Like I did there at Bountiful. Let's go fishing. Let's party together. Let's go on drives together. Let's become, really close, so that I can share things with you and you with me. And in that small knit facility like that it just empowers everyone to do the right thing all the time. And what was neat, Danny? Those two fellas that I worked with, they were fully empowered to do anything without me. So they could start the plant, stop the plant. They could make decisions. They knew the people to call. And you know what? We just talked about it. And if it was the wrong decision, that's no big deal. It's already made. It's behind us. What are we going to do next time? Well, next time, if I'm on an airplane, use the text. I can text on an airplane. You don't have to call me.
That's incredible.
I know. Isn't it something? So, yeah, it's just really important to have that relationship with your team. Same with the truck drivers. You need to be able to know your entire team and know how to handle it.
I didn't even think about the truck driver side of it, because I always think, well, that's logistics and distribution. That's not the plant manager, but that's a great point to add.
Yeah, you've got to be able to forecast the customer demand with that demand in mind, forecast how you're going to run the plant, what your production is going to be. Yeah, there's so much to managing one of those sites. So
it sounds like, I haven't read the book, The Speed of Trust, but the idea of, making decisions on the speed of trust and having that rapport with your team, not rapport, I'd say like that teamwork, that cohesive. You mentioned, and I was going to actually ask you before you mentioned it, I was going to say, what were some of the best team building things that you did? Was it pizza at the office, or was it, you mentioned fishing. I think that kind of stuff is awesome. And the different plant managers that I've seen throughout the industry, because I don't know how many plants I've been on, but I actually feel like I have some authority in saying I've seen some really good plant managers in this industry by all the different people that I've gone and talked with and watched them interact with their team. And the ones that really knock it out of the park do exactly what you said. Like you can say you're not supposed to get close to your employees, but it's, they run it almost like a family, because
decisions. That's perfect. That's a good way of saying it too. I'm the dad and they're the kids, but you know what? Together you make a family.
You make a family. And, if you guys have to, all of a sudden something goes wrong and everybody's working all night, don't you at least want to be friends with the person you're going to have to stand there all night with?
We spend more time at work than we do with our families, if you look in a career.
That's true.
Yeah. I'll tell you another thing, Danny, that really goes a long way is a burger burn. You know how we have those burger burns?
Yeah, I saw that grill there the other day.
Yeah. So see, when you have a burger burn, you go out and get all that stuff, and you take an hour or so, and you make a big lunch, and you just sit there and enjoy a hamburger and some chips and a drink or something, and you just shoot the breeze and you just talk to people. Hey, what'd you do last night, man? Me and Marie, we got in World War 18, Well, what was that all about? You know what I mean? And then the guy gets to vent it and it's gone. Yeah. It allows him to vent that anger or the poison or whatever you want to call it. And that's a burden off their shoulders. And I don't think nothing of it, I think it's a good thing. I mean, you almost have to be part counselor too. When you get into leadership, all that stuff just comes with the responsibilities.
There's a saying that says business is really simple until people get involved.
Yeah, I know. You just hate them.
You gotta be able to manage your people and get them rallied up and help them get excited about the goals, because you guys have goals coming from up above.
Yeah.
And so let me see here, kind of getting toward the end here, but what's your advice? You've given some really good advice for plant managers and operators, and I thank you for that. What's your advice for a contractor? Like, what makes a contractor great to work with?
Well, somebody that comes in and asks the right questions so that they can get the task done that you lay before them. And to do it without, and when a contractor comes on site, I don't want them leaving 20 times to go down to Lowe's or to their parts house to get parts. When someone has walked the job, they ought to be able to look at it, know what they need, and when they come on site, they're ready to execute that task. And the whole time I was there at Centerville there, that was one of my biggest things that really irritated me, because they're on the clock and they're sitting there driving around town chasing parts that they should have brought with them in the first place. And, downtime is money.
Wow. I think that is incredible advice. And I'm sitting here thinking of every time I've ever gone to a Lowe's or a Home Depot now when I was, well, I mean, ours are lump sum and their plant's usually running in that instance, but that's great advice. That's actually advice that I needed to hear, because it's easy to go, oh, if I forgot something, I'll just, especially in your case, your Home Depot was only a stone's throw away.
Right. And you don't really want that stuff on your plants anyway. You want industrial stuff, heavy pipe. You want heavy wire, the stuff you really can't get down.
Oh, I got you.
So then the guys are driving all the way to the parts places or supply places in Ogden or down to Salt Lake. And it's like, geez. See, it's not like you, Danny. You say, I'm going to paint that tank for $10. But those guys are working for $10 an hour. And they're driving around producing nothing, see?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I can see. I
don't care about you going. I don't care how many times.
I think even in my case, I'm sure that would be something that kind of brings a negative connotation if you're having to run to Home Depot. It just, I think you gave really good advice that, plan it out and minimize any times that you have to leave the plant. That's going to look good to the plant manager. And
right.
That's the kind of stuff, that's the reason we want to interview you guys, is so we can learn that stuff and get better.
Yeah, right on. And every time, it's not like it's the first tank you've ever painted.
Right.
Why don't you have all that stuff in your truck or your trailer? I mean, what, is this the first time you've been on an industrial site? Where's your safety stuff?
Yeah. No, all great points. All great points. What would you say to a plant manager that's experiencing their very first shutdown or turnaround?
Good luck.
Is that where we put on the little meme from Taken where the guy says, good luck?
No, having their first shutdown or something. If it's a planned outage, it's that word planned. You got to plan for everything, from having enough toilet paper in the bathroom to having that gasket that is only made in Korea. You got to have all of that spectrum completely covered. You have to ask what do I need? What is it? Where do I get it? How fast can I get it? And some of that equipment's 30, 35, 40 years old already. I think that plant was built in 83. So yeah, it's 40, 37. It's 37 years old. Well, some of that stuff is obsolete and gone. So now you thought it was going to be real simple to replace that temperature element. They don't make it anymore. So now you got to modify your pipe. Well, you didn't count on doing that. You can't run without the temperature element that is no good anymore. So you're in between a rock and a hard place. You've got to have the replacement. Wow.
Great advice. See, that's, I when I came up with these questions, I had no idea what kind of answers I'd be hearing. And I mean, I feel like on each one of them, you're knocking it out of the park. That maybe all the plant managers, they're going to all say, oh, I already know all this. But I feel like there's some who are going to say, that's a good idea. I need to implement that myself. Just a couple more questions. Maybe like the funniest story of your career or the scariest story of your career. I'll let you pick.
Well, the scariest story of my career, I was in an oxygen fire not long after starting with the company. I was making deep water diving mixes, a helium oxygen mix. And there's a recipe you follow to make it. So
so that goes in the scuba tanks, is like helium and oxygen?
But big cylinders that they would use to fill their individual diving cylinder. These are in, the big cylinders. So you put the helium in first. Well, we didn't know that the helium compressor had failed in some of its rings and didn't have an oil coalescer on the discharge of it. So I was actually entraining droplets of oil throughout all the piping and into the cylinders. And I had filled the cylinders, 30 of them, up to about 2200 or 2100 PSI. And then the recipe called to stop. And then you switch this hose on this manifold, and then you introduce oxygen. Well, I had 100 oxygen cylinders coming up on 2 other manifolds. And so I switched this hose over just like you're supposed to. And as soon as I cracked the valve open, that oxygen was at 2100 PSI. And when it reached out and touched that oil coated line and all those cylinders, it just went boom. And we had a big fire.
Whoa.
Yeah, it put
Now,
me in
does oxygen just ignites when it touches oil? Is that kind
well,
of?
the adiabatic compression of it hitting the bottom and the turn of that hose created enough friction and heat to ignite it.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, remember, you need an ignition source, you need a heat source, you need a fuel, you need all that stuff combined was all in that hose, and she took off. And it made a cutting torch out of the hose. It was a flexible hose. So I was lucky, to be honest with you, I was lucky I didn't have my guts cut right open by that hose. It did sever, it broke from the explosion inside of it, and it cut a 36-inch welding gash, just like a cutting torch, through a industrial sided building,
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, cut it right through there. There was a medical cabinet immediately to my right. It went through that. It cut I think a 13 or 14-inch slash in it and ignited all the labels and paperwork that was inside that cabinet. It burned the clothes off of me. It burned my hair off, burned my arms.
Oh my gosh.
Bad. Yeah, it was bad.
Wow. But you didn't have any permanent injuries from it?
I've got some scars, but no big deal. And I do have a little PTSD, not that anyone knows about, but it's just something my wife and I laugh about. I can't stand to be around helium balloons because that popping sound of a balloon scares the living daylights out of me. And it's something that I'm aware of and I work really hard on. But just like in here, if somebody brought a little bouquet of balloons in here, it would freak me out. And I can't control it. I have to really work hard to control that fear.
Wow.
Yeah,
wow.
Isn't that crazy?
Thanks for being vulnerable, man. I think that just makes it that much better. The authenticity there, that story, man, that's powerful. I remember when I had a near miss that I almost took a bath in sulfuric acid out at that mag plant, the US mag out.
Yeah.
The big polluter.
Yep.
Well, we were in a tent and all of a sudden these little droplets started dripping on top, and the foreman I was with said, "That's not supposed to happen. Let's go." And we moved out of the way, and literally exactly where I was standing, molten sulfuric acid just came pouring down. I mean, that plant is like a steampunk American Ninja Warrior death trap.
Yeah, it is.
You walk around that plant, it's so much rusted stuff that it's incredible that it just keeps running. But
and you guys are breathing that stuff, Danny.
Oh, I know. Yeah, you're gone now. You say you guys because you're not in the fishbowl anymore.
Yeah, you're not. I'm not that polluted. I tell you what, there's no pollution up here. Of course, there's no industry either.
Wow. Yeah, it kind of goes both ways, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Last question is: a lot of plant managers who hear this are going to be pretty close to retiring, and I'm sure they're wondering what retirement's like. So I got to ask you. How are you enjoying your retirement?
I am absolutely loving it. And retirement doesn't mean the rocking chair on the front porch. It basically means, I loved my 40 years with Air Products. Absolutely loved it. I had so many good experiences and made so many good friends. But now I'm doing what I truly love, and it's what I was doing in the Air Force as well, and that's serving people. I'm a servant deep at heart. And now we're working in this community of alcoholics and narcotic addicted people. And it's just an absolute joy every day to come here. We work 12 hours a day on the timer and probably another 2 to 3 hours in the cleanup and the janitorial kind of stuff that we have to do to keep the place clean and operational. So it's not like we're working short hours. We're not. But are we ever having the time of our life? It is unlike anything I've ever experienced for this kind of time frame.
Wow. And what is the name of the place that you're at?
It's called the Hub.
The Hub.
And you can find it, Danny. Go on Google Maps and find the hub. And it's on South First and Bowen in Bismarck. And you're on Facebook.
Yeah, we need to connect on Facebook.
So look up 321 Coffee. I made it's very primitive because I don't know how to do things, but I made a little Facebook page and everything.
Okay, let me pull
on
up
Facebook. And then there's another one called the Hub. The Hub is the building that we're in. The coffee shop is inside there.
It's 321 Coffee?
Yeah. Bismarck. And there's other ones on the East Coast.
Oh, yeah. I see a one in, Bismarck. Here we go.
Bismarck, yeah.
Wow, Joe.
And we've got one employee so far, and we're growing constantly. We're really starting to boom. Here, let me give you a tour. Let's see, what do we see? Okay, now the camera's looking that way. Okay, so this is our big conference room. So this is where we hold conferences, or large meetings. And then here, let me go around like this. And then you see those big doors?
Oh, that looks like your cafe.
Yeah. All right, so I'm in the big conference room. And you see those huge doors?
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Okay, so what we do is if this room fills up to capacity, we can open these doors. We can open them wide. And we can move all our coffee tables and stuff. And we can see, there's the room. See where the barn doors are?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So people can come in here and they can still hear and see the TVs.
Oh, that's awesome.
Here's our little coffee bar.
Wow. Is the long-term plan kind of the Starbucks route?
No.
Sprout them all over the place?
No, not at all. We're happy with little things. See, we're here to serve a community. We're not here to make money. So we're employing one of the gals that's in the program. It gives her a job that she can live on. It's really a good deal. And we're working with Mighty Missouri Coffee. They've taught me the coffee business, and they are willing to hire the people that we train in their stores. So it's a win-win for everybody.
Wow. That's incredible. You mentioned that before this, you really only knew how to make a cup of black coffee.
Yeah, for the guys at the plant.
You weren't any kind of a barista.
No. Well, now I've got a very expensive high-end Italian espresso machine. I can make espresso so beautiful and smooth, it's unreal.
Well, I got to ask Joe what his favorite cup of Joe is.
Yeah.
What's your favorite?
Yeah,
Espresso?
It'd be an espresso, yeah.
So I'm learning a little bit about that with I've always liked those caramel macchiatos from Starbucks, and I had no idea how they made them.
Yeah.
But I guess it's mostly milk. It's like 20 ounces of milk, a shot of espresso, maybe 2 shots. No, I think it's 1 shot of espresso. And then they drizzle the caramel throughout it, and that's essentially it. But man, it tastes good.
We make some incredible drinks, let me tell you. Hey, listen, I'm going to have to go.
I was just about to say the same. We hop off.
Excellent. Hey, Danny, keep in touch. It is so great talking with you.
Thank you, Joe. And let me say before you go, from hospitals to iPhones, industry, the world would not be the same without you plant managers. And just thank you from the bottom of my heart and from Brio for all the service that you've given to the industry. It's great talking to you, my friend.
Thank you. Great talking with you.
All right. We'll stay in touch. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.